Let's return to Bondi Beach now as the community begins its long process of recovery from the terror attack. Several volunteer groups have arrived from Israel to lend assistance. One of those groups is United Hatzalah. They've travelled from Israel and specialise in the support in the immediate aftermath of traumatic events. Dr. Sharon Slater is a clinical psychologist specialising in trauma. She's been assisting Australians that were at the event on Sunday and joins me now. Sharon, thank you so much for your time this morning. Briefly, could you just, give us a bit of an overview of what it is that you and your team do and have been doing on the ground this week?
Okay. United Hatzalah of Israel is an organization of volunteer medics, paramedics, psychologists, and social workers who arrive on the scene as soon as possible after an event occurs. We landed on Monday, immediately after we heard about the event, in an attempt to get here and treat people as quickly as possible to try to help them process the event in the early hours after the event occurred. Because from our experience in Israel, the quicker you process an event in the way it should be processed, the less likely you are to develop post-traumatic after effects.
Yeah, could you explain to me this concept of, wanting to intervene within 72 hours of someone experiencing a really traumatic event? Just how critical is those 72 hours and what is it that you're trying to do in terms of, helping people to process what it is that they've just been through?
Okay, that's a great question. The first 48 to 72 hours is the period of time in which an event becomes consolidated in the mind. And therefore, intervening psychologically during those first 48 to 72 hours can make the difference between an event being processed as a negative event or an event of heroism, an event of success, an event in which I did something to save somebody or to save myself and my loved ones. And therefore, for United Hatzalah of Israel to come to the scene within the first 72 hours was imperative. We spend time with each of the victims, rebuilding and reframing the narrative for them and helping refocus them on the aspects of the narrative in which they were successful, as opposed to the aspects of the narrative in which they feel they may have failed to help somebody else or failed to help themselves get out of the situation. That's why the first 72 hours are so critical for us to reach.
Absolutely. And obviously, those conversations are personal and private, but could you, in a way, give us an idea of, what the response has been like to your teams over the last few days?
Sure. The response has been overwhelming. I think there's a sense that perhaps because we're Israeli and we've experienced terror attacks, many of them have said to us, because you were on October 7th, you understand us in a way that nobody else can understand us. I think that most of the sentiment that we're hearing from people who were physically here at the event, they don't want to speak to anybody who wasn't here with them. They feel that they cannot be understood by anybody who is not physically present at the attack itself. So when we showed up on the scene, the response was, oh, somebody who gets it, somebody who knows terror, somebody who can really understand the feelings, the emotions, the overwhelming experience that we had. You are people from Israel, so you get it.
Moving into the next few, days, weeks and months, this is obviously going to be a really long road to recovery for a lot of families and witnesses and even, the broader Sydney and Australian community and the Jewish community in particular, of course. How important is it, or what are the things that people will need to focus on over the next few weeks and months?
Well, I think that it's really important that people understand that the roller coaster of emotion that they're experiencing now is partially because that's typical and normal for a terror event, and also partially because there's a sense, at least this morning, that the event may not be over, that it might be a rolling event and not a discrete event after the arrests from yesterday evening. So people will be very emotional, they'll be teary, and then they'll feel fine. They may feel like they're constantly triggered to return to that moment. It's really important for people in these days and months, or certainly in these days and weeks after the event, to do really good self-care, to take themselves to places which will relax their bodies and their minds, and to be aware that much of what they're experiencing will indeed pass. Most people who experience events like this do not develop PTSD, and I think that's important to emphasize.
Dr. Sharon Slater, thank you so much for your time this morning, and all the best to you and your team for the important work that you are doing this week.
Thank you.